So I'm just outright gonna say that I'm talking spoilers about this film. I talk spoilers about films anyway, but I feel like I need to really mention it now because I can't think of any other way to talk about the drama without talking about the thing about it. So if you don't want to know anything about it, leave. If you're curious about what I think, I love it. It's great. There you go. I'll be talking spoilers. Go watch it. So I'm going to give you a count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I assume everyone who is still here has either seen the film or doesn't care about spoilers. Either way, don't complain to me if you got spoiled. You've been warned. So, the drama. I didn't know really anything about this film going into it. I was looking forward to it because it's, Zendaya, Robert Pattinson. I really like Zendaya. I'm a big fan of Robert Pattinson. It's a new Christopher Borgli film. His previous film, Dream Scenario, I really, really liked. Was a big fan of it. So, of course, I was going to be interested in what this guy was doing next. And I saw that it was an A24 thing. And I'm always going to watch an A24 film. That's not fully true. But I'm always going to at least be interested in an A24 film. So, going into the drama, I think I heard bits. I didn't know loads. But what? No, I did hear like Lewis went to me. He was like, "You're gonna hate it." I went, "All right," because he heard about it, the thing, and then I went to see it, and obviously, I think like I saw like a screenshot headline over like a few weeks ago, being like Columbine survivors outraged by the drama, and I was like, what? Like, I was so confused. I was like, what's the connection here? And then it gets to the film, and there's the scene, and then it's revealed that Zendaya's character Emma planned a school shooting, and that's the film. The whole that's the catalyst for the drama. And I was like, oh my goodness. And then so that is all I kind of fully knew going into it. So I didn't even really get it spoiled for me, but I was like, I had that knowledge of like, what? But I can only imagine what people felt like who didn't fully know. Anyway, before I go on a full-on ramble, yes, overall, I love this film. I think it's great. I think it's a really fascinating conversation starter. I'll be interested to see how it ages. But as of right now, I'm like, I love this film. I've now seen it twice. First time I watched it, it was like at like 10:15 at night on Easter Sunday. And I'm like, I'll go see the drama. And I'm the only person in the screen. I'm the only person in the cinema. So I don't have like the audience interaction. And it was such a really like, I don't know, it felt like such like a unique experience to me. It felt very, again, from what I've seen of Christopher Borgli, with only Dream Scenario, and obviously I know this is an Ari Aster produced film. I'm like, the feelings I walked out of the drama with was very much similar to feelings I would walk out from a project that Ari Aster is creatively involved in. And I got out of the cinema at like, I think it might be midnight. It might be, yeah, it was probably like midnight-ish, maybe, I don't know. And then I was like, I need to have a drive. And I was like, because I just need to process it. Like, I couldn't just immediately go back home and just sit and think about it. I was like, I need to, like, have time away from my home space to just drive around and let it sink in a bit. It was the same kind of thing I did for Bring Her Back. I was like, I need to just, like, stay here for a moment and let it, like, sink, let everything sink in. So then I wanted to go back. Before I start spewing my thoughts on it, because it deals with very complex subject matters, obviously. So I wanted to get my head fully wrapped around it. So I went to see it again last night in the evening. It was like about 7:00, in a quite a packed cinema. It was for what it is. It was quite a full cinema, which is what I wanted. And there was clearly a lot of date nights for that film, and I'm like, oh dear, this is going to be interesting. And I definitely got a reaction. I definitely got the reaction that I wanted from the crowd from seeing it again. But also, I got to watch it again. So, in terms of talking about it on a base level, I think that, like, performances-wise, this is an outstanding film. Alana Haim is great. I forgot her husband's name. The actor who played is it Mike? Yeah, Mike. I forgot the actor, but he was great as well. But obviously the two central lead performances, Zendaya and Robert Pattinson, are excellent. I watched like Carsten Rundquist's review, and he said that he felt like, in terms of writing wise, Zendaya's carried Emma, even though she is without her, the plot doesn't exist for the film, but we don't necessarily explore her as much, and I can get that. But I think with what Zendaya does is, it's a very difficult character to fully go in. I think for like someone like of her stature and size of celebrity to do something like this is bold. But I also think she doesn't play it one way or the other, I don't think. Well, I think she does play it one way. I think she definitely does play it sympathetically. But it would have been a bit nicer to try to explore more of her side. We were definitely more so from the point of view of Charlie, Robert Pattinson. But Zendaya's performance, I think, was great. It was subtle. It was naturalistic. It was really good, I think. Robert Pattinson, I thought, was excellent. I think it helped with the writing with his character. But him as a whole was, I don't know, like I've seen someone say he's just typical British, and he kind of is. And I think, because obviously Charlie as a character is very like, he's like kind of bury his head in the sand with a lot of things, and he's kind of like, I just kind of want to like, there's definitely a way that could be played with it. I think Robert Pattinson, he plays it funny, but he also plays it sad. Like, he's got this like beautiful in-between of managing to play up the comedic points in this film, which there are comedic points, but also there's like, especially within the third act, I just feel like my heart like wrenches for this man. I'm like, oh God, Jesus Christ. And it is Robert Pattinson's whole thing with it. He can literally jump from being funny to tragic. And that's the thing that I've noticed with, and obviously I've only seen 2 Christopher Borgley films, but in Dream Scenario, there's a scene with Nick Cage that feels like, oh, this is really like harrowing and like sad and really like gut-wrenching. And then it just hard cuts to like, within the same context, something incredibly fucking like hilarious. And the film kind of does that. So again, still speaking on a technical level, performances are great, excellent. I think the editing is noticeable. The editing is showy, but it's noticeable and showy for a right reason. I like the hard, like if we're going to like a flashback or like when a story's being told, we just hard cut to that scene, and then we hard cut back, and it's just and again, the editing is noticeable. It's a very noticeably edited film. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And I think especially for a film like this, where it's not a big, flashy action, kind of thing, to have like hyper cool editing, it's fresh. It's a very fresh kind of like presentation of film. Now, when I first watched it, I was like, oh my, I felt it was darker than it. I felt more on the darker side of it. Like, I felt more like, oh, like a pit in my stomach throughout the whole film. Now, in terms of my stance on it, in terms of where my moral compass points to, after first viewing, I was definitely on the side of Emma. Definitely. I was on the side of Emma with also a thought of like, but I could understand it and everything. Second viewing, I'm like outright like, no, I am definitely still on the side of Emma. So the point being is Emma they do this game of like, what's the worst thing you ever done, and they go through it and all that stuff, and Emma confesses that she almost committed a mass shooting in a school, and she explained that it wasn't just a thought. She brought her dad's rifle. She was going to do it, and then didn't. And that right there, like that first thing is like just like, I think that scene's going to be one of the more memorable, one of the more talked, like that like dinner table scene is going to be one of the more talked about scenes of this decade of film. I think of like of just like pin drop or shock and awe, and with everyone's reaction of Charlie kind of nervously laughing, and then Rachel going like, "What the fuck?" and all that, and being like, "My cousin is paralyzed from," and it's like so. And then, so I'm of the side of like, okay, let's hear her out. Then she did this when she was 15. And then Charlie starts asking, like, the next day or so, Charlie's like, well, we need to talk about this. She goes, can we just forget about it? He's like, actually, no, we can't just forget about it. And then he starts and then he starts asking her, being like, so what, and then we learn things, about her, about, you know, how she was still going to do it. And then there was another shooting that happened in a local mall, and one of her, like school, like one of her, like someone that went to a school was killed in that school shooting. And then she saw the after effects of it. And she saw how it affected the community and how she felt from a shooting happening and her pain from that. And then it then whipped around to like, she then became a part of an anti-gun community. So she became an activist, and she found her community, which was something that she didn't have. She found herself in the place of wanting to commit a shooting. One, because of the aesthetics is what she said of shootings, and how, like, you know, lost kids find dark places online on the internet of like that romanticize shootings. They never named Columbine, but obviously I know of like the really deranged, like the really problematic like thing, like community that happened post Columbine of people romanticizing it, and which is a very fucked up, like insane thing. And they touch upon that as in like, I think that's another thing I really like appreciate about this film. I feel like I'm gonna go all over the place with my thoughts in this film. That's the thing I really appreciate about this film, is like there's never one like this isn't like based on a school shooting. Columbine never gets named, or like other school shootings never get named. It's just the umbrella like conflict and topic is on school shootings, and it is looking at like what tragic, like what like troubled, lost teenagers, how they find themselves. And I think it's like kind of like a similar like look into it that like what adolescence has in that sense, about how like lost youth can find themselves in dark places online. The difference here is like we see the other side of that. We see Emma's character as like someone that didn't do it, and she has grown up, and she is, you know, she's gotten past that as like a thing in her, and she's like kind of like developed as someone, as a healthier person. But she did have that past. That is something that she'll always have. But it is like this thing of like she's, yeah, I don't know, man. Like she's like this, like she went through it and then she found a community, but she did plan a school shooting. And to me, from my point of view, I'm like, well, isn't that what we want to happen? We want people to not shoot up places, and we can't stop someone who thought about it. But it would be one thing. It would be one thing in my head if Emma was like, "Oh, I went and committed a school shooting, but then I didn't because whoops, never mind." But it's still a thought in my head. She outright didn't do it. She stopped. She stopped her process to doing it. And in the process, not only did she become like, I don't want to be a shooter, she became vehemently anti-gun, which is, I don't know if I'm the only one here. Isn't that a great thing? It's not a great thing that she wanted to shoot up a school. Absolutely not. But it's a great thing that she herself stopped that from happening and then made a very conscious decision to be like, now I'm going to be actively against it, you know? So to me, morally, I don't have any, like, there's no, like, issues in terms of, like, whether Emma is a good now. I mean, like, whether Emma is a good person now, kind of thing. And I remember first viewing, I'm like, oh, she's a very complicated character and blah, 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 blah. But on second viewing, watching it, everyone's a complicated character. Like, she's obviously complicated, but also I think Charlie's complicated. I think Rachel is she's an interesting character. I think there's an interesting societal sprinkle in. Like, different pockets of society are represented in characters in this film. And I also... I'm hearing a lot of people say it's interesting how they're choosing to have a black woman in this as that specific character. But I think it's also kind of interesting how they outright chose to have Charlie be British. As a British man myself, I have very strong feelings on gun violence because it doesn't happen here in the UK because we ban guns. We have different issues. I'm aware of that. But also, I'm very there has been gun violence in the UK, and action has been taken to stop it. And obviously, because it just doesn't happen. And there's a very interesting point of view that Charlie has as a British man who almost has an outside outlook on shootings as a whole, and then he's trying to, and obviously it's a very fucking it's a tragedy everywhere, but it's not a regular occurrence where he's from. And then him trying to wrap his head around how the woman that he loves, the woman that he's about to fucking marry, which is amazingly intense concept for a film to create tension and conflict. But he's trying to wrap the woman that he loves, and then he's that point of view is immediately oh my god, who is this person? He's not immediately yo, fuck her, but he's I now need to really get to know who the fuck this person is, because I mean I can understand the tension. I can understand it. I think there's, and then and he does go through the conflicted feelings of trying to almost didn't you have someone that died that you were really close to? And she's like, look, I know what you're trying to do. It's not relevant. And he's like, well, how do you know it's not relevant? He goes, and I look at that, I go Charlie, mate, you're really trying to stretch for it. And he does. He tries to stretch for it a few times in this film. But then he's very complicated in the sense of that happens. And then he's he's not burying his head in the sand, but he is very excuse finding. And then he is very really conflicted. And there's a scene that I want to kind of that's on in my head. And by the way, I'm aware this is very all over the place. I feel like a much more beneficial video would be if I had someone to talk about a conversation with this, and I'm more than open to do another video with someone that's seen the film and have an actual discussion and conversation about the film, because I think that's where this film lies. the strength of this film is the conversation that it presents. But there's a point. But what I think is very like fascinating is the scene where he initiates something with Misha, and one, it's sad, one, it's like, oh shit, and and then it's just kind of funny at the end of it, which is amazing how all that can happen in one moment. And then that scene alone then makes Misha a complicated character, I think, because obviously it succeeds a scene that like has Misha go like, yeah, the worst thing I've done is cheating. And then she just kind of like, in that scene, yes, Charlie initiates it, but she's definitely like, all right, let's do this then. It's like, what the fuck? And then the thing of like, he rips her top, and then she just turns over and pulls up a scale like, well, I guess this happens. I guess this is happening now. And I think not only does, and that's such like a very like, from my point of view, it can it presents questions of like power play, because he's her superior in the workplace. And then it also presents interesting things about how like within the wedding she tells her boyfriend, I said no stop, but he just kept going, which is false. That didn't happen. I don't know. I think that scene itself as well is so like, it's another pocket of an insane conversation to have, where this film has so many more other insane conversations present. But I feel like at first I was like, oh, should we be making this a funny film? And I think like, yes. And let me pinpoint that specific point. But I think like the premise of this film, it's not, I think like first viewing I was very much so like, like, oh my God, it's a film about like it's a about school shootings. But that's a topic in the film, and the film isn't about that. It's about people's reactions and people's viewpoints on certain really tough situations. And I mean, I've heard the comment like, well, it could have been anything. I don't think it could have been. I think like film and art as a whole should be allowed to question or like bring forth difficult subject matters, because nothing should be off the tables. It's up to the filmmaker and the artists and the creatives as a whole of how they handle it. Because, I mean, one quote that I really like, it involves stand-up comedy, where the comment was made of like, saying that something is too, like a joke is too, I'm paraphrasing it, but saying that a subject matter is too off the tables to tell a joke about is like saying that there's a disease that just is incurable. Whereas like, why would you want to try to write a disease off the table? I know in terms of humor, like comedy wise, it's like, man, the point being like, well, we should be able to laugh, like try to laugh through everything, because we need to try to understand pain and try to deal with it in our own way, and try to make it, and try to allow ourselves to understand pain and tragedy in our own way, and an accessible way to do that is through humor. And I think film, there's an accessibility through film, and I think especially through a film like this, where it's kind of branded as a bit of a rom-com, with a bit of a darker twist to it, and try to understand it. And I think if the film was just like, we're going to do a film about a school shooting, so if the film was solely about Emma as a teenager, just following her, that feels like, ooh, there's a very touchy thing about this. But having the film already be retrospectively looking back at it, and the film being more about the feelings and the conversation surrounding that as a topic, makes it a lot more of an accessible thing to digest and a lot more of an accessible thing to understand. But not only is it a thing about trying to understand someone who went through that, the film on a wider scale is like, all right, well, maybe your partner or the love of your life may have had a past. And now that's like, wait, what the fuck? But now they're not that person now. But now you need to try to wrap your head around why they were that person in the first place. But I think the film offers the options of like, well, maybe we can try to like understand who they were. I think the film offers the exact thing of like, okay, they may have been that person in the past and that might have been troubling. But I think we need to try to understand who people were in the past and then try to realize who they are now in the present. I think that's the viewpoint. Yeah. And I think it's great. I think it's an absolutely great film. I think it will be interesting to see how it ages. Because I rewatched it, and on a second rewatch, I found the humor more palatable. Not that I didn't think the humor was palatable. There's the photography scene where we cut from like them trying to like talk about it, and then we immediately cut to like the photographer meeting, and she goes like, "I'll shoot them, I'll shoot yous, I'll shoot the." I was like, "Oh my god, that's a darkly funny scene." You know what I mean? And a comment that I made to someone, I was like, I don't know, in my opinion, if this is just someone, by the way, who hasn't seen the fucking film, but is very vocal about the thoughts on it. One, in my opinion, you can't be critical about anything unless you have seen it, because you don't know the context of said thing. But my comment being like, I don't know how accurate I would feel about this comment as time goes on, but to me, if you are angry at the drama because it has a school shooting topic. Again, a school shooting doesn't get shown, nor is it even about a school shooting even happening. But if you're angry at it because school shootings are a topic of the film, then you should also be angry at Inglourious Basterds because it features World War II. Do you know what I mean? To me, it's that kind of like method of it where, I don't know, I feel like films should be able to present hard subject matters because it allows us to process it and understand it in a palatable way. And I think the drama kind of does that. To me, I go to see films in the cinema to have an emotion evoked and to have thoughts presented in my mind and to want to talk to people about a subject matter that a film presents. And the drama has damn well done that. And I would want people to see it because I would want to talk to people about it because I think there's so much that the film offers in terms of conversation. And holy shit, I love the drama, man.